In the Lab, a Texans podcast that takes a different look at things. Drew Dougherty and John Harris have their lab coats and goggles on, and the Bunsen burners burning. Here's Drew.
This is In the Lab, and I'm Drew Dougherty. That's John Harris putting his hands up in front of the screen, and this has been maybe one of the most fun In the Labs we've ever done, not just because I like doing In the Lab and talking football, but because it lasts 4 podcasts long, and we might stretch it out and make a 5th one where we recap things, but last week we started picking an all-time NFL franchise. We each got a pick, but the twist is you can only choose one player from a franchise. So you're never going to have a Montana to Rice on your team. Well, you might, but it wouldn't be 49ers. It'd have to be like you chose Chiefs, Montana, and Raiders or 49ers, Rice, or something like that. Yeah. But once you choose a player, he's gone. So last week I chose Dion Sanders from the Falcons. You can't choose him from the 49ers, where he was excellent for one season. Can't choose him from the Cowboys, where he was really, really, really good. Yeah. He's off the board. Yeah. So we keep that in mind. And to recap, here's who we picked the first time around, just to kind of recalibrate things before we start our second round. 32 picks total, so 64 picks in all, 32 on each side. But we're breaking it up by 4, so we had 8 apiece last week. You led off with Anthony Munoz, and we have like a breakdown of all these picks in an article form if you want to read this and get a little more on the website and on the mobile app. But you led with left tackle Anthony Munoz of the Bengals. I went with Dion Sanders of the Falcons. Each of us were kind of choosing in that first round, that very first pick, hey, these are franchises with big drop-offs, we think, after that top guy. Then you went with Larry Allen of the Cowboys. I got LT, Lawrence Taylor, the only LT for the record, yes, of the Giants. You went with Watt from the Texans. I went with Jim Brown from the Browns. You went with Aaron Donald from the Rams. So the only 3 guys who ever won 3 Defensive Player of the Years were gone by the 4th pick. I had Bruce Matthews. You went with Dwight Stevenson, the center from the Dolphins. Maybe the greatest Dolphin ever, maybe not. I went with Walter Jones from the Seahawks, the left tackle. Randall McDaniel was your choice in the 6th round with the Vikings. He was an offensive lineman. I went with Calvin Johnson of the Lions. Then came Tony Baselli for you. Smart choice there. He's the greatest Jaguar of all time. That's another young franchise, and you went with Baselli. He's a left tackle. I went with Reggie White of the Eagles, and then you wrap things up. Your final pick on the first day, you went back to one of the expansion franchises, the Panthers, and you took Luke Kuechly. Smart choice, I thought. And then I went with Forrest Gregg, a right tackle from the Packers, and maybe the greatest right tackle ever, maybe. So we're starting things off today. I get the first pick this time around. What were we going to say? You. Okay.
You get the first pick. That's right. You get the first pick because I took overall. Because as we've said, and it bears repeating, we've got a couple of things going on. Number one, the player in filling out an entire roster, but then also the team. That's why I went Bengals early on, because it satisfied 2, because Anthony Munoz is the best Bengal ever, and he satisfies a left tackle need. So there are a number of things to consider as we make these picks. And so, and the third part is, like you said, if you draft a player and you draft him from a particular team, then you're taking him away, i.e. Deion Sanders, you're taking him away. I can't pick him from any of the other teams that he played on, even though he played on, I think, 3 or 4 other teams. So there's a lot to consider in all this. And then the last thing is the specialist angle. How will you handle the specialist? I think I have a way that I'm going to do it, but we'll see how it goes. I might have to break down, and I don't know. We'll see.
I know how I'm going to do it, and you're going to see. One of my specialists, if you want to consider him, is the return guy. And Deion Sanders, I knocked that out with my very first pick, so it worked.
Yeah, you did.
As you hear my stupid dogs barking at a leaf. I love my stupid dogs. They're barking at a leaf in the front yard or something.
Hey, man, whatever it takes. It's cool. All right, you get the first pick. You're going where?
This is tough because I thought about franchises. I thought about what I need. And it came down to going from either the Raiders, the Cardinals, or the Jets, because I think there's pretty big drop-offs after the top one of each.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Raiders, though, because I think one of the greatest guards of all time is somebody that I need. Because I took Bruce Matthews, and he might play guard, he might play center, but he gives me flexibility. But I want to make sure that I stay stout up front. And maybe the greatest Raider of all time, maybe, some people have him as the greatest Raider of all time, is Gene Upshaw. The offensive lineman, the guard, so many all-pro teams that he made. He's, more famous to younger fans now as being the recent he's basically before DeMar Smith, head of the NFL Players Union. But I'm going to go with him because he was a phenomenal player. I'm taking Gene Upshaw. I'm bolstering my offensive line.
I really would like to continue the offensive line thought. And as you said, potentially the best guard of all time. I'm like, oh man, I've got my offensive line filled out, and I feel pretty good about that. One place I have not dabbled, if you will, is in any of the skill positions.
Yep.
Or I should say ball carriers, and perimeter positions.
The skillsiest guy you took was Luke Kuechly, and he's a linebacker.
Yeah, now he's fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
You were trenches the rest of the way.
I did. I went trenches. But I'm going to go out wide. And I've already taken from the Vikings, so I cannot take Randy Moss of the Vikings. However, I am going to take Randy Moss, who I think in 2007 strung together one of the greatest seasons, if not the greatest season a receiver's ever had. He's the Freak. That was his nickname. I will take the Patriots off the board, so no Tom Brady for me. But I am taking Patriots wide receiver Randy Moss.
Interesting pick, because that means I have a choice of Brady later, Gronkowski later, and a name that not a lot of people think about, but it was at my disposal no matter what, because you've used up all your offensive linemen. You could use him as a swing guy. Now you can't. John Hannah. Some say he's the greatest guard ever.
I know. And so that leaves him on the board for you. At that point, you have options. But I was circling Randy Moss in the beginning, but either way I was going to come up with Randy Moss. So I came up with Randall McDaniel and Randy Moss, or I could have had John Hannah and Vikings Randy Moss. And I feel okay either way with that, although John Hannah is pretty darn good. So I have a feeling that's where you might go, but you have feel good about Patriots Randy Moss for sure.
I was going to go with Vikings. I was going to go with Vikings Randy Moss. So you've kind of made this easier, but you've kind of made this harder in a way. So that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. The Jets. That's a tricky team.
Oh,
man.
That's hard.
I love Joe Namath, but I don't want Joe Namath as my quarterback.
No.
He's the greatest Jet ever. I don't want him as my quarterback. No offense, Joe, but I got better choices. And then you've got Mark Gastineau and you got Joe Klecko, and they're really, really good players, but I've got a lot of other elite defensive linemen that I can go with. So I got to guard Randy Moss. I got a guy that got Dion Sanders. But you're going to have another good wide receiver out there. So I'm taking Darrelle Revis, and I'm taking Revis Island off the board for you.
Wow.
So I'm going to go with Darrelle Revis from the Jets as my Jet on my roster. Now I've got two shutdown corners.
And corners are stupid good, man.
We're shutdown corners. They're not going to make a bunch of tackles for loss. You're not going to use them on corner blitzes so much, but I don't care because I think my pass rush is going to be pretty darn good with the guys I got. So I'm taking Revis Island off the board, John.
All right, Drew, you mentioned earlier there's some teams to consider as it pertains to players that there aren't too many. The Jets, one of them. The Darrelle Revis find is absolutely phenomenal, and I give you a lot of credit for that. That was a great one. The Cardinals, to me, are a team that kind of fits into the same category.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take Larry Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I'm going to take a guy that probably not a lot of people have heard about, but he was one of my idols growing up in some sense because he once played a game with two broken hands and actually had an interception in that game, and he invented the safety blitz.
Damn it.
So for the Cardinals, and this was when they were in St. Louis, but it was the Cardinals. I am taking safety Larry Wilson.
Oh, okay, good. I thought you were going to say my guy. So that's good.
Really?
Yeah.
You're thinking it was going to be somebody else who played with 2 broken hands in a game for the Cardinals?
He might have. I don't know that he did, but it wouldn't have surprised me because he's an all-timer. So.
All right. I'm going with Larry Wilson, Hall of Fame safety for the St. Louis, Arizona, Chicago Cardinals. Larry
Wilson.
It won't resonate too much with the younger folk, but he was Troy Polamalu before Troy Polamalu. How about that?
Yeah. He could have also gone with Dan Deerdorf. Great right tackle.
My offensive line was already good. I thought about it. Yep.
Already set. Yep. Or you could have gone with my guy who played with the Cardinals in Chicago, but I'm going to talk about that later. So we'll go down that route in a bit. All right. Boy, you're making it tough. I don't have any linebackers yet. And I have to have one of these 2 guys. It's a non-negotiable. But I'm going to go with the greatest Raven ever. I'm going to go with Ray Lewis. It's going to leave you with lots of options. You have 2 like lead pipe cinches you could take elsewhere. Even though your offensive line is set, you got a guy. And then you got another guy. But I need a linebacker, and I'm going to go with Ray Lewis.
Okay. All right. That does leave a lot open, to say the least. That's a good one. All right. My thought process the other day was I wanted to, as much as I possibly could, go with the younger franchises. And for a long time, while we were growing up, there weren't too many new franchises until the Jaguars and the Panthers. Well, I got players from both of them, and I got my Texans. So I think I've got the youngest team. The next youngest team actually came in a pair. You got one of those, the Seahawks. The other is the Buccaneers.
This is tough.
And when you mentioned linebacker, I jumped all over a guy. This is the guy that I had top of my list for this team because, yes, there's a guy that I could go with on the interior line. I didn't want to do actually 2 that you could have gone with the Bucs, and you would have been okay. But to me, I think one of the greatest and most underrated linebackers of all time I'm going to take right here, and that's Derek Brooks.
Okay.
Nobody ran with Michael Vick, but the Buccaneers beat Vick all the time because Derek Brooks could run with him. With the Buccaneers, I'm taking Derek Brooks. He was one of my top picks, and I wanted to make sure that I got him. So I'm jumping right here at Derek Brooks, linebacker, put him next to Kuechly. We can fly to the football. But I'm taking Kuechly and Brooks.
All right. Boy. Now it's getting tough because we've eliminated a lot of these franchises.
Yes.
Goodness.
This is where you stare at your board and you're like, okay, I had a philosophy going in. I'm going to stick to my philosophy. What am I going with?
I got to do it. He was my favorite player when I was a little kid. And Jim Brown loves this guy. And because of who you've chosen, I've got lots of flexibility at the back part. But I want to make sure that he's off the board. And I'm choosing Sweetness, Walter Payton of the Bears. It came down to him. It was either him or Dick Butkus. I had to have Ray Lewis or Dick Butkus. And I want to make sure I got Walter Payton because he can do so many different things. He's a great running back.
He can be your punter. He can be your punter, quarterback, wildcat quarterback.
Yeah.
He can do anything. Yeah.
I love him too much. You know, I want to make sure he's my guy. He's on my team. He was the all-time NFL rushing leader. He will always be. I have the 2 all-time NFL rushing leaders. Whatever, Emmitt Smith. Who cares? You're not in their league. So.
Yeah. All right. That's a good one. I'll tip my cap that one because now you have Jim Brown and Walter Payton in your backfield. That's pretty solid. There's no question about that. Okay. You know, you took Ray Lewis, which leaves the Ravens for me, and there's a lot of different ways I could go here. Jonathan Ogden, I loved. I was a huge fan of Jonathan Ogden, but I've got my offensive line right now. But Larry Wilson was a ball hawk, but he was also a guy who could blitz. You could play him around the box. The best ball hawk is a guy, I'm going to just go ahead and do it now. Even though I could probably go a few other teams if I looked at it, teams that we haven't selected from, but I feel good at safety enough that I will go with, let me be clear, Ravens Hall of Famer Ed Reed.
It's a good choice. I like it.
Yeah, I'll take Ed Reed.
So you've got Ed Reed, and we've made 4 selections each today. So we're halfway through this draft. Now it's getting really serious because neither of us has chosen a Bill, a Steeler, a Colt, a Bronco, a Charger, a Chief, a Redskin, a Saint, or a 49er. I almost said a Buccaneer, but you took the Buccaneer off the board.
Yeah.
Who is someone that I must have that there's just no way that – this is tough. Like right now, this is – because you've got so many options with the 49ers, with the Steelers, and with the Redskins to a degree, but especially the Steelers and the 49ers.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly where I'm going with my next pick.
Do you?
But it's your pick, so I it's your pick, so I can't do it, but I know exactly where I'm going to go. I can put this card in 2 seconds when you're done.
Okay. All right, I'll get my kicker. Saints, Morton Anderson.
All right. Okay. There are a lot of Hall of Fame players that came out of the late 80s, early 90s Bills. I'm going to take the best one. I'm going to take Bruce Smith and pair him with J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald.
Damn. Good one.
That takes Thurman Thomas off the board, and I was a huge Thurman fan. So yeah, I take Bruce Smith. So the Bills come off the board, leaving me one pick in that division from the Jets. I'm going to have to do some studying on the Jets, man. I got to try and find somebody that might be a spot for a punter or a kicker. I don't know. I'm going to have to think that one through.
All right.
We got 3 picks left. Is that right? 3 picks left in this episode. Here we go.
All right, Steelers. Golly, this is so hard for me. I'd go Rod Woodson because I want a ball hawk.
Oh, yeah. But
play lots of position. Right? But I got a couple other guys that I'm going to put in the secondary that I know of that you've already chosen from other teams. So it comes down to getting the greatest center ever, Mike Webster, or Mean Joe Green. I got to get after the quarterback. I'm going Mean Joe Green.
Ooh, dang it. I was hoping you were going to talk yourself into Mike Webster.
Nope.
I really wanted you to do that.
So you're up.
All right. Well, I gotta find somebody that can cover. And even though there's a long, rich history for the Washington football team, I've been kind of gone back and forth about and I got on my offensive lineman. And so I'm like, then it hit me. Oh, man. I'm going with the very last pick in the 1983 first round, and he will be my lockdown corner. I'm going to go with Darryl Green from the Washington football team.
Solid. From the great state of Texas.
Yep, that is right. I was struggling with what I was going to do with Washington. I had a few options, but I didn't love them. And then I thought, man, I need some cover guys. And I thought, oh, man. And then it hit me, so I'll take Darryl Green. So I know I can run. That I can do. And hopefully I'll be able to cover. But, yeah, I can run.
Well, I love Joe Montana.
Uh-oh. Are you dipping into the quarterbacks? We have not gone to the quarterbacks.
I love Joe Montana, but I got to get Ronnie Lott off the
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insanely massive. Okay. Okay, so that's good. So you took 49ers Ronnie Lott, right?
Yes, I did.
Boy, that leaves some really good 49ers on the board for me. And it makes me think, do I want to add Jerry Rice from the 49ers and put him with Randy Moss? Hell yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going. I'm following you, but I'm like, I could really wait if I wanted to. But I'll take arguably the two best receivers of all time. I'll take Randy Moss, Patriots, Jerry Rice, 49ers. That's my selection. There we go.
All right, my final pick, huh? Whew. Goodness gracious. Me, oh my.
Yep. Last one. All right.
We've got a Colt, a Bronco, a Charger, and a Chief, as well as a bunch of others, but nobody has chosen any of them. What do I want to do here? I'm going to leave things open. They've all got, aside from the Chargers, I love Dan Fouts, but he's not a quarterback that you can really and trust this team to.
No.
And I'm going to wait on my quarterback. But, I don't have a tight end yet. I'm going to get Travis Kelce from the Chiefs. I'm just going to go ahead and over Tony Gonzalez, over Kellen Winslow. I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Over Ozzie Newsome.
Well, I already took
you have a Brown. You have Jim Brown.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're good. All right. Trying to look at best available on my boards. This is the Mr. Irrelevant pick of day 2 as I sort of look at this. And I know when you hear this name come out of my mouth, you're going to go, wait, hold on. But I don't want to draft a punter, and I definitely don't want to draft a kicker.
Okay.
And I'm in the business of drafting former MVPs of the league.
Okay.
And you know how I like versatility. I like guys that can play a lot of different positions.
Yeah.
He won the 1956 Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame playing quarterback. He came to the league and played running back. He was the MVP of the league in 62. He also kicked extra points and field goals. From the Packers, I am taking Paul Hornung because I know I can do a lot of different things with him. And
Heisman Trophy winner on a losing Notre Dame team.
Only one to ever win from a losing team, and he will be the only one to win from a losing team. But that satisfies both my kicking aspect. I can't have him punt, but I don't have to draft a kicker now. And so I can have Paul Hornung kick. He catches, he runs, he can even throw. He's my Wildcat quarterback. He's everything. I'm going Paul Hornung as my Packer.
Good choice. Okay, so to recap, I started things off today. I went with Gene Upshaw, left guard from the Raiders. You countered with Randy Moss of the Patriots. So you took Moss off the board. You also took a Patriot off the board, and you opened it up for me to choose either Brady, Gronkowski, Hanna, or a wild card, which I'm not going to do. Okay. Then I chose Darrelle Revis of the Jets at corner. You went with Larry Wilson, the Cardinals safety. Then I went with Ray Lewis, linebacker of the Ravens. You went a linebacker. You went to the Buccaneers, Derek Brooks. Mm-hmm. Probably the greatest Buccaneer ever. He or Warren Sapp.
Arguably, yeah.
Yeah. Walter Payton. I had to have sweetness on my team. I make no apologies for it. You went with Ed Reed of the Ravens, safety. I got my kicker out of the way with Morton Anderson from the Saints. And then you went with Bruce Smith, which was an oversight. That's who I should have gone with. That was kind of a dumb move by me. I rebounded, though. I got Mean Joe Green from the Steelers on the interior of the defensive line.
That's your steal pick.
You went with Darrell Green, corner, one of the fastest men ever from the Washington football team. I chose a safety in Ronnie Lott, and that left Jerry Rice open. So the 49ers are off the board. And then I wrap things up with, it's probably a controversial pick, Travis Kelce, tight end of the Chiefs. There's a lot of great Chiefs, and I'm picking that guy. Well, it's sort of what my team needs and what I want. And then you went with Paul Hornung, a guy who could do it all from the Packers. He's going to make plays for your team. And by the way,
I don't argue with your Kelsey pick at all. I have no qualms with it. There's some good Chiefs, and there might even be, some might think, a more decorated Chiefs tight end in Tony Gonzalez, but I'd take Kelsey all day, every day. I think he is one of the more underrated great players ever.
Yeah, matchup wise, he's going to be a problem with the two guys I got in the backfield, and then Calvin Johnson out there on the edge, plus some of the guys I'm going to add later.
So I'm looking at it, and these are the teams I have not selected anybody by that I can think of off the top of my head here.
Well, neither of us has chosen a Colt, a
Correct.
Bronco,
Correct.
or a Charger. That's the only thing that's left.
Correct. Wow. Yeah, that's holy smokes. Because with the Raiders, you selected
Upshaw.
from the Raiders.
Upshaw.
Oh, Gene Upshaw. That's a great pick. I had actually given consideration to picking Leckler or Ray Guy with the Raiders, but I figured, you know what? I'm going to take Paul Hornung, and I'll live with the rest. But that leaves me a lot of Raiders. That's good. I'll tell you the one thing. Getting Bruce Smith to me, I was like, oh man. But missing on Mean Joe Green, letting you get him, that was a big miss. I was hoping you'd go Mike Webster, because you were trying to talk yourself into it, and you went with Mean Joe Green. So you now got to figure out your center position. But you have Bruce Matthews, so you can do pretty much anything with him.
Yep.
Do a lot with him.
That's what I was thinking. Flexibility there. Not flexibility, but excellence with flexibility. So there we go.
Very
All right,
much.
we got to cut this short because due to this cold weather, which is a reason we didn't do this last week, due to that, I've got to make sure my little kids do their first grade assignments. I have twins at home, so I've got to hop off this Zoom to get them to hop on another Zoom. I appreciate your time, John. I can't wait to get this going. Make sure you go to the website, check this out in written form. Got a couple of articles coming out soon, but this has been In the Lab. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.